TV, Jackie.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Lovebabz, Lovetalk. I'm Babz Rawls Ivy. And I got a studio full of folks. I'm so happy to welcome the folks from Southern Connecticut State University. And we're going to be talking about the Black students.
Black Student Union, but we're talking about alumni and the students.
Yes.
And the leadership.
And that's Jackie Buster, my dear friend.
Hello.
And my soror Barber Mathews over there.
Good morning.
And Jim Williams over there.
Good morning.
And Mr. Jim Barber.
Good morning.
Now, this is interesting because there's a lot of history in this room at Southern Connecticut State University. And you guys are some of the first advisors, right, to the Black students?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Okay. So it's like 50 years of Black folks doing Black folks' work.
Well,
Right.
you know, Jim's been on campus since like 19 whenever. And I think we count that as 50 plus. Like we're into year 51 probably. More than that, it seems.
Are y'all trying to make SC Southern Connecticut State University a HBCU?
It's kind of doing that on its own.
Working on it at one time.
It's starting to feel very historically Black college over there in my neighborhood.
We'll talk about that later.
All right, so what's going on, Jackie Buster? Tell me a little bit of what's happening.
I can tell you a whole lot. We are getting ready to have a once in a lifetime, and I say once in a lifetime because Southern is getting ready to celebrate its 125th anniversary, and that's a big deal here in New Haven. The other part of this is that as an alum and being a member of a strong Black Student Union a group and alumni group, it's become very important to us to be able to give back to students who didn't have the type of support that we wished we could have had outside of campus. Inside this room right now, these were the people who really looked after us and made sure that things were taken care of and that our grades were what they needed to be and that, you know, we had an opportunity to be able to excel on campus and stay on campus, not drop out. The missing piece for us was what happens after we leave. There was no network that was built in to reach back and say, hey, young man, you know, you might want to do this if you're thinking about a career in that. Or I might have an internship opportunity for you over here, young lady, et cetera, et cetera. So our goal as grown-ups now is to be able to reach back and provide that network to existing students and recent graduates who need an extra, you know, little bit of a push or hand or help out here in the real world.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, so this weekend kicks off when?
This weekend kicks off next week. It's the 19th.
Okay.
19th, 20th, and 21st, and we have a large agenda, you know, before us that involves mentorship opportunities. We're hosting a lunch for students. We are doing a social justice forum with former Black Student Union and Organization of Afro-American Students. They're going to be talking about current day issues and
that'd be like Mike Jefferson and them.
Mike Jefferson, Gary Heisman, Clint Miller.
You know.
Oh my God! It goes on and
when you
on.
say that, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. You can only imagine. Shantae Hanks, etc. We've got a lot of folks who are coming back to celebrate with us and just be part of this event. And most importantly, next Friday, we're doing a leadership dedication where we're going to be honoring the 3 people in this room. Because if it weren't for them, I'll tell you, I probably wouldn't have graduated. And if it wouldn't have been from Southern, I don't know where it would have been. Online, maybe somewhere. I don't know, Barb. What do you think?
You were all right.
I was all right.
You just needed a nudge every now and then.
A little bit, and that's really what it takes for most.
Okay.
So you know.
So Miss Mathews, Sister Mathews, Soror Mathews.
Yeah.
So how did you get over to Southern? Like, how did they woo you over there?
Well, there was a Roberta Flack concert. And
what happened was
what had happened was I said, no, I kind of like this place. I got a good feel, a good vibe. And as it turned out, the Organization of Afro-American Students at the time were looking for a minority Black counselor to help them out with some of their concerns. And I interviewed for the job.
Really?
And it was a love affair from the beginning.
Wow. Now, are you retired? Or are you still there?
Oh, yes, I'm retired.
Okay, because, you know, I can't really tell. People say they retire, but they don't really retire.
They don't really retire. Right.
They go do something else.
But I'm retired. But before I retired, the Black Student Union honored me with an outstanding service and dedication to students award, and that's how the scholarship started.
Mm-hmm. So what was your era that you were there? When were you there?
From 72 to 02.
Okay, so you've seen a great deal of change and turmoil and
all of it.
Oh yeah.
Well, maybe not all of it, but a lot of it.
A lot of it.
Yeah.
All right, so talk a little bit about those early days. Like, did you have a clear direction of what you were gonna do or work with? Like, how did you think about your role when you got there? When you were hired, how did you think about this job?
Did you know what you were stepping into?
Well, I kind of did and kind of didn't. I had come up from Medgar Evers College in Brooklyn, and there'd been some tumultuous days there too in the early beginnings. So I was used to being on the battleground, but I wasn't familiar with the Southern culture, and I leaned on Jim Barber a lot in the beginning, and my co-friend over here, Jim Williams, and I came in together, so we kind of leaned on one another. But Southern is a unique place, unique but very, very challenging and good place to grow, to get your wings in, so to speak.
Oh, so, Mr. Williams, when did you arrive there?
I arrived actually from, I got out of service. I was a Vietnam veteran. I came to Southern. Actually, I was working at Hill House High School as an outreach worker, working with young people, being a mentor to young people at Hill House High School. And so I like Bob, we went for an interview, but I went over to Southern and interviewed for a position there as the assistant director of admissions. And I could tell you one thing. That was one of the best jobs I ever had. I always look about and say, well, maybe something's green on the other side. Maybe I should leave it. But after I was there for a long time and immediately working with our students and getting to know them, and today I can say that I can go from California, Florida, Maine, anywhere, and see students who have graduated from Southern, who are doctors, lawyers, anything you want, they wanted to be. And they always come up to me and talk about it. Because I'm still involved with some different programs in Connecticut, the contact program, and some programs that are dealing with young people. So I'm still pretty active, and I'm also working with the city doing some things too.
Don't retire.
But the beautiful thing about it is that you have a good feeling about what, you have young men or young women who come to you initially from the outside saying, what should I do? What courses should I take? And at that time, we were one-on-one with our students. We worked one-on-one, help them schedule for classes, help them to talk. We had like Barber was a counselor, Jim, the overall administrator. We all had our own part. We all tried to mentor these young people and to talk to them. And you can see from that, from 1972 on and on, that these young men and women blossom out into what we are today. And so we are very proud that what we did. One other thing I want to say, there was a legacy built up, and I got to say Jim Barber started that legacy for being there for that long period of time. And I have to give him credit because he was kind of all our mentors at that period of time, talking to us and in his own way, mentoring us of how we should do some things. So we've had and we kind of carry that on into our own personal mentoring program, being able to work with young people, specifically students of color. That was one of my jobs.
Okay.
And I went from New York, New Jersey, mostly in the region area, New York, New Jersey, all over Connecticut, and you can see the fluctuations of students coming from New York, New Jersey, that came up to Southern. So it's and most of them, some of them came up and stayed. A lot of them went back to New York. But what they did was they went back to New York or New Jersey and said Southern is a great place to go.
Yes, yes.
That's right.
My brother-in-law went to Southern. He didn't graduate, but he went to Southern, and that's how he met my sister.
Okay.
So that's that was one of where how we got. It was really, and I still have a great feeling for students. I still go to alumni affairs. Homecoming, and we all get together with young people, young men and women, and talk about some activity. And it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to see some of them guys and some of the women gone on. Like I went visiting a high school in New York one time, and I met with one of the students who graduated from Southern. She was head guidance counselor.
Hmm.
You know, and they have principals and all kinds of things. And you know, and one of the things I'm going to say that I don't know if you guys know Stephen Stanley, who's a dentist.
Yeah, I know Stevie. He's matching my soror.
He graduated from Southern.
That's right.
So you know,
there's a long list
of
of folks who have gone on to do, work on the national level,
Right.
international level that people have no clue of.
right?
And that's, again, one of the reasons why we wanted to come back, so that we could inspire the present students to say, hey, look, you look at Southern as just being Southern, but we look at Southern as being a launch pad to, to our lives. So, and a lot of them have been pretty good. So yeah.
So, Mr. Barber, when did you land over there? Because
Come on, Jeff.
No, don't take it out. Just move it can move. And he'll just have to lean in, turn it.
Lean in.
There you go.
Actually, my history at Southern started in my undergraduate years. I did all my undergraduate work at Southern.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. I came back to Southern after graduating to coach in 1964 and back to teach at Southern in 1969. So it's a long, long history. From a historical standpoint, for a person who graduated from Southern when there were only five African American students in my graduating class.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I kind of felt like the opportunity to come back and do something that meaningful presented itself when I got a call asking me if I wanted to come back to teach, which was unusual. Usually you have to go through a search and blah, 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 blah. But I got a call, asked me if I'd be interested in coming back to Southern to teach. And for me, given my experience, I had two questions. Do you want me to come back? Or are you looking for a yes man? The question would answer that they wanted me to come back. That made it okay for me to come back because I knew that I would be in a position to be able to come back and try to have a significant impact on the students who were left behind. The other thing was that when the president asked me to come back to teach, he also asked me would I be advisor of the Organization of African American Students. And that was an ideal opportunity to really get involved with students right away, not only in the classroom, but outside the classroom. So it's been a journey. I remember when Barber and Jimmy came, and that's the best thing that could have happened to Southern at the time. Because both of them came in and hit the ground running, and the rest is history.
Okay. Now, do you still feel like Southern's a good place for Black kids to be?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I think the students who've come through Southern feel the same way. Are there struggles? Absolutely. Okay. There are always going to be struggles on any campus until students realize that they have a voice. So as we work to be sure that students are clear that they have a voice, and strategically how to be sure their voices are heard, it gets better and better.
Okay, so you got this big weekend coming up. Is this the first time you all have done this?
It's not the first time alum have come back to campus, but it's the first time that I believe it's been this organized.
Okay.
This organized with events that are clearly targeted, toward, people of color.
Okay.
Black people.
The Black students.
That's right. And alumni. And alums.
Okay. And how is the school receiving this? Are they supporting you?
President Joe has been around for, has it been about 2 years now? Almost 3 years? Into 3 years, and he's been very receptive. We couldn't work with a better person. He understands where we're coming from. He understands the strong history on campus, the many walkouts that took place in order to put programming and structure in place to be able to be supportive of students. And he understands the camaraderie and how important that is. And the fundraising opportunities, to be frank. So yes, Southern's been very supportive.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the history of Black folks at Southern and how things look then and how things look now. I mean, are you pleased with the progress? What else would you add if you could? Besides more money, which is more money.
I think we, looking at it, being involved with higher education for a long period of time, we're having, I'm being real, we're having a decline in numbers of Black black and colored people in higher education.
And what do you attribute that to? Like, what's happening? Are we not going into these roles? Are we going in other directions? Or are we being kept out?
That is a question because I talked to some of my colleagues, people like who worked in.
Bring that mic a little closer to you.
I talked to some of my colleagues, and there's a trend now that we're not. This is not a need as much as back in the 70s and the 60s to bring in minorities or Hispanic counselors and black counselors. Now the need is because of the economy. I think things look different. We're not, number one, program looking for number one recruiters, looking for counselors or teachers, and there have been a download of number of people of color in higher education.
Mm-hmm. So we are not seeing any more Barbers, Williams, and Mathews?
Let me say something that I think one of the things that people just are not aware of is that the progression from into higher ed really starts before higher ed. And so when you talk with a lot of young folks now who are in K-12, they're not advising students to go into higher ed. So if you're not advising students to go into, if they're not advising students to go ed. So if you're not advising people to go into ed, then the question becomes, how do you get into higher ed?
Mm-hmm.
I asked a young lady, this is about almost a year ago, we were having this discussion. And I was talking about the small number of people of color in the education period. I mean, only 8 or 9% of all the teachers in the country, USA, are teachers of color. So if only 8 or 9%, then that means 92% are people who are not of color.
Mm-hmm.
So when I raised the question with her about what do we need to do and where should we start? And that's when she said to me, Mr. Barber, she said, a lot of us in education are not advising students to go into ed. So my question to her was, then you really don't want anyone who looks like you to teach your child. She said, I never thought about that. So there's a need to really begin to address the larger issue and make people aware of the fact that 9% of all the teachers there's someone that has to be in that classroom to direct kids, and to give direction, to mentor, and so forth. There was a time when we were directing, and rightfully so, we were saying the youngsters need to get into finance, we need to get into blah, blah, blah. But we forgot to encourage them also go into finance and law and so forth, but also to go into ed. So there's some issues that we need to work with that I think that we haven't addressed.
And so where does those early conversations start? Do they start when they come in freshman year in college and you sort of have these conversations with young people, or do you go to the high schools and have conversations about, if you're thinking about college, think about a career in education?
They start in middle school. And they start in the home.
Okay. But if you when I was a kid, there was a bunch of teachers that lived in my neighborhood. So I saw teachers all the time. I don't know if that's true for young people now. I don't know if teachers are living next door to people the way that I grew up. I had Mrs. Green and I had, Mrs. So-and-so. I had a bunch of teachers that lived in my neighborhood. And I don't know if kids have that. So how do you, are teachers of color, are you suggesting or saying teachers of color are sort of fading away?
Well, the profession doesn't really pay a lot. That could be one of the calling cards.
Okay.
It's not the most fruitful profession to go into. You sort of have to sort of build up and find your niche in the profession, and especially in the counseling area. The popular areas are maybe in drug addiction counseling and alcoholism and women's studies, those kinds of things. The everyday stuff that the two Jims and I used to do is sort of maybe not as interesting and not as appealing as it used to be.
I want to say one thing, though, that when I was at Southern, we had a program that we had for Fellows High School. that we would go into Hill House in the education program and bring students into education, at least maybe 20 students a year, just to go into education.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we had some good students that came out of Hill House to go into education
Mm-hmm.
at Southern Connecticut State University. And what was one of the things, they got free scholarship. They were one of the things was they had to come back and teach us in the Haven school system.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened to that program
Okay.
after I left. But I know when I was there, I used to go over at least 4 or 5 times a year, sit down and talk to the students about education, talk to the students about coming to Southern, preparation, things they have to do, to take SATs and things to prepare them to be, to go into education. Because education is a tough program to go into. It's not an easy program.
Mm-hmm.
It has certain requirements you have to get through. So most of these students were in the program and came on to Southern. I know Jim can know that we had a good program there. And but again, I'm not sure what happened to that program after I left. I left in 2009.
Okay.
And
So it's not long ago.
No, it's not long ago. No.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not. See, what we're saying here is that was that carried on by somebody else. Somebody else has to pick up that part. And what we picked up for 20-some years, somebody else has to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things we're talking about today.
Exactly. And I think this is one of the reasons why Jim Barber doesn't want to retire. I'm not so sure that he feels as if there's, anyone there who's willing to carry that baton race after race after race after race.
And so how do you groom people, Mr. Barber? Do you groom people? How do you ensure that what you built continues with the same excitement, the same commitment to young people of color? How do you? I mean, at some point you're gonna have to say, you know what? All right, I've done carried this as long as I can carry it. I got to go and do something else.
I'm gonna answer this for him.
Uh-oh.
Jim said to me several weekends ago, he said, I've been waiting for this. And this meaning alum to come back, Black alum to come back, to kind of take this on, because this is bigger. We have so many students who are enrolled. This is bigger than one person. He cannot do this by himself. He's got a full-time job he's doing at Southern also. So this involves a larger community. This is that whole village concept where so many of us have come out of Southern. Look at all the educators who are principals at New Haven Public Schools and beyond, who've graduated from Southern. All the teachers, folks who go back to get that master's degree, second and third degrees, doctorates of education, etc. They're out here. They're out here working. So it's up to us now to be able to reach back and say, we're here if you need us.
Now, do you all have the conversations? Do you take this conversation to the superintendent of schools? Do you take this conversation to your churches? Where do you have these conversations so that people recognize that education is still a viable, necessary thing that we need, and we need to be in it more?
Let me speak from the Southern standpoint. We have a new associate vice president for enrollment management who is just absolutely dynamite. We stole her from Norfolk State. And one of the things that she has really embarked upon is some intentional outreach and involvement with the greater community. So we're looking at, in fact, we've been meeting with the faith-based community, the service organization, Boys and Girls Club. I'm even going down to, and some of us are going down to Bridgeport, Stanford, Norwalk. We've been talking to youngsters and individuals in their GED program, because just going in and out of high school is not going to do it. There's a larger community out there that has a significant impact on what's happening in the high school. So I am pleased, at least for Southern, with the direction in which we're going right now, in terms of our outreach to the larger community and the individuals who can make that in. But what we've started with is reaching out to alumni in each of these communities and trying to establish an alumni advocacy group in Bridgeport, Norwalk, Stanford, New Britain, Hartford, and so forth. Because we figure that those folks have been there and they have a voice, and they're They know which students are impressionable and they can pull it together. So, I won't talk to death, but that's some of the things that we're doing right now to try to address that deficit.
Okay.
And as Jackie says, it's really starting with alumni.
So let me shift gears a little bit. Do you feel that young people are coming out of high school prepared to do collegiate work? Because that's a conversation that's being had all over the place. And I know when I came out of high school, I was woefully prepared. Like I was readily prepared for college because I had teachers who understood that I needed to make that jump, and they prepared me. And this was before AP classes and all that stuff. It was AP all the time whenever you came to school. But now I'm seeing young people are not as prepared. I mean, I've heard that they've stopped teaching cursive in school. And,
I heard that.
And they've stopped doing long division math, and they prefer students to have their gadgets so that they can, do work faster. And
what happens when those gadgets, the battery dies?
Well, what happens when you get kids to college and they cannot perform at the collegiate level? And then you have to remedial things, fill in, put in place. Talk a little bit about what you know about those kinds of examples.
Babz, it's even more so whether or not they're prepared for college. It's about whether they're prepared for life in general. Mm-hmm. We're talking about basic life skills for a lot of students. I think our students are the generation that I see now and the preceding one, we've coddled our kids. We have made them a little weaker than I'd like to see them be because we've taken care of so many things they take for granted.
We've made their lives seamless.
We've made their lives seamless to the point where some of them, they're very mature in a worldly way, meaning they're very much aware of what's out here. But whether or not they know how to deal with it is another situation. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a bigger conversation about how we're preparing our kids for life.
Because I'm seeing it when I have these conversations with HBCU folks and all these kids that are coming to HBCUs. And historically, we've always taken kids that sort of been marginalized out of other places. Like if you couldn't, if you're not going to Yale, but you certainly could go to Norfolk State or Morgan State or Barber, Scotia or Johnson C. Smith and get a damn good education and could hold it up against anybody. But now we're starting to see kids come to college with a lot of deficits that weren't there before. And I'm just interested in hearing, as counselors, y'all are on the front lines, or we're on the front lines of dealing with those deficits. So how do you think about that, and how do you think about that for the folks who are going to stand in your places to address those needs? Don't everybody jump in.
That was a real good one,
deep
Mark.
question.
That's the only deep one I'm gonna give y'all.
Okay.
That took our breath away.
Well, being an admissions counselor, I had to look at SAT scores, high school transcripts, all these things, and ranking schools. And then you want to interview the students. There have been, when I first started, a little decline in certain areas. One of the things I think you already mentioned was that a lot of students don't, do the cursor writing, long division, multiplication. They don't think as we used to think. They don't apply themselves as we used to apply themselves. Because we knew we had to be like the minister or reverend or teacher next door or be better. I'm not saying the kids don't try to do that, but somewhere along the line, the skill level is kind of falling off. Not all students. I'm going to say that. I used to go around Connecticut and places. We have great students, but some of the students, yes, you do have a problem, but you still got to balance that off and say, well, we do have a lot of good students, and we have a lot of marginal students, like you said, and we have some students who need remedial help. Mm-hmm. So where is a good place for some of these students to go to?
And so you, as the admissions person, because you're the point of entry. That's the point of entry.
Right.
And you have to determine by looking at somebody's whatever, their whole packet.
Right.
and you have to think, okay, I'm gonna take a chance, or I'm gonna call them up, or I'm gonna go see them or talk to. Is that what you do?
Yes, sir.
See, because I know that's a tough thing, because you got to look at other things other than what's in front of you.
Let me say one thing. I can go back now and say, you gave me a chance. I wouldn't have made it unless you gave me that chance.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew that I would tell them, hey, you got to do better than this. You got to go do something about this. This is not right. And I mean, I'm upfront about that. I'm gonna say, hey, your grades are poor, your SATs are low. What you been doing? You know, this is what you got to do.
Oh, you a real talk.
Oh, yeah.
That's HBC talk.
You have to
HBCU talk.
Right. And you have to get these.
Joking.
You have to get these grades, or you're gonna have to go part time. I'm telling you, a couple of them I say, you go to part time evening or take some courses. Show me that you can do the grades, and I'll bring you. And they went and did this, and they were very successful after that. So you got to have some kind of you as a counselor. I had to have something inside of me saying, "These are my standards. These are something the kids have to come up to." Now, I'm gonna bend over some. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna be rigid, but I'm also gonna say what would be. Sometimes I would tell you, maybe you may need to go to community college for a semester. You know, there's nothing wrong with that, because a lot of students that went to community college now are coming on to Southern, coming on over. You know, that community college is really preparing them to.
But the door's not shut. Like, no. I didn't hear you shut the door.
No.
Like,
no.
I heard you say you could get in, but you got to, over the river and through the woods kind of thing.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay. I like that.
Well, Babz, sometimes some of our students need a little more than coddling too.
Right.
I know I've been accused by some of the counselors in my area that I bend over backwards too much for them. Give them too much love. Oh, if you need some love, you go over there to Miss Mathews. Well, when you give love, you give other things as well.
Yeah, because some of these kids are coming from deficits where there is no love.
Right.
Sometimes I give them that big mama talk, too.
That's right.
Like, what in the world
Only
is
black
going
mamas
on?
can do it.
That's right. You see, this is a triangle right here, right?
Yeah.
You can't balance a stool without three.
Yes.
Right? That's the significance sitting here. And each leg of this stool served a different purpose for us, right?
That's I like that.
We have over here, think about it. Are you sure this is what you want to do? I want you to think about ramifications. We have, all right now, you're going to do this. Yeah, I'll support you, but, And then we have over here, all right now. Listen, I got you. This is how we're going to do it. Right? She's going to work you through it. And it takes that three, because you have to have balance. It can't just all be one way.
Yeah.
Right? And some people don't see that. Everybody says, oh, I have my favorite advisor. They were your favorite because they were doing what you wanted them to do. The way you wanted them to do.
All right now.
Right? It doesn't mean that there couldn't have been a little balance there, and you might have been able to do a little bit better if you'd taken a little bit more advice from the other one. Right? So I think as adults, we look back and we go, oh my God, we have to love them all because they all did something different and stood for something different in our lives. And hence again,
I like
that's why we're here.
So Southern is very much a school in the community. Very much a school in the community.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes overshadowed by that other school in the community.
The little school.
The big one.
Oh, the little school.
Which one?
The one with the vines. Sometimes it's overshadowed by that. And then there's this little upstart community school. So there's a lot that is vying for the attention of our kids these days, I think. And so what would make a student want to choose a Southern Connecticut State University above all these other places? Everything being equal. Like if their grades are right and they have the temperament and the wherewithal to get through a collegiate curriculum, why would they choose Southern Connecticut State University? If I have a black kid, why would they choose it?
It's still affordable. You can still
that makes my pocketbook feel good.
There you go.
And not have to worry about years upon a lifetime of debt. Because most of our kids here within the greater New Haven and beyond, outside of our state on the borders, they're not, we keep talking about silver spoons, but I think it takes a golden one now to graduate from an Ivy League. I mean, how do you pay for it?
I don't.
How do you?
Takes years.
I don't even know how to say it.
Student debt. Yeah.
It's called student debt. It's called a noose. That's how I look at it. Unless you're coming from a family that can just pay for it.
Yeah.
And you're coming out of an institution debt free. Then I think we also have to look realistically at what do our kids want to do? What is the aspiration? If we have a student, I think, who, wants to become a hedge fund broker or whatever it is, because that's what I believe that most of the studies are saying, that most students who graduate from Harvard and Yale end up on Wall Street, right? It's more than 50% of the classes. So if we've got students who are interested in that track, will we support them? Will we seek scholarship or financial aid or try to figure that out? Of course, I think that should still be an option for many. But I think for an average student who wants to become an educator, who wants to do communications or marketing or, study science or become a nurse, et cetera, whatever that is, Southern's an incredible option.
That's a good point, because that's the criticism HBCUs, that, there's not enough money to sort of fund your education through
Social
scholarship
work.
And grants.
I'm not going to Yale because I want to become a social worker, right? It doesn't mean that I wouldn't or couldn't be, right? But I'm just saying, if this is, when you really look at a career path, I think Southern becomes a viable, affordable option where you can succeed.
Okay. That's a good point. I like that point. Affordability. What else? Is it a world-class education?
Yes, it is.
For me, it was.
Okay.
Yes, it is. And it's becoming more so every single day. We have more and more students who are studying abroad, who are alumni who are actually working abroad, who are actually coming back now to interact with our students. I always feel like you're in a situation where you don't trust the planners, you don't trust the plan. And for me, the more that Southern has over the past 10 years, has gotten out into the community at all levels, been able to interact with parents and students, teachers, and so forth, it makes a person look in that direction. They may be considering Southern in conjunction with their consideration of other schools, but they feel good about the university. We just had, I think, about 1,500 students on campus Sunday for open house.
I saw that.
Yeah. And it was interesting to me because I made it a point of and most of us did, made it a point of talking to people when they got there and when they left, as they were leaving. And body language shares a lot to me. When you say to someone, well, how do you feel? Did you get your question answered? And you get the big smile. And that says a lot. Because I don't care what comes out of your mouth. Your body always tells the truth. And so we had a great day with students from all over Connecticut, a significant number with students of color. Joe Bertolino, our president, has proclaimed that by the year 2025, I think he said, Southern will be 50-50.
Right, within the next 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
It's going to be a show enough HBCU. Do they got a band? Do they have a band over there?
We're working on
okay.
it.
Working on that.
See, that'll make it an HBCU. Get a good old band up in there.
When we played St. Aug's for the Harmony Classic, and St. Aug's brought their band up, the current president at that time said, "Whoa, we got to get one of those."
Who are we playing for homecoming? I would meant to ask.
When is homecoming?
Homecoming
Next
is the
week.
19th, 20th, and 21st.
Oh, during this, right?
Yeah.
And who are we playing? Do you know?
I
hope y'all playing somebody black so a band could come.
That would be nice.
I can tell you, we have the Caribbean student group. The dancers are going to be in the parade this year, which is the first time ever.
Nice.
Divine Nine Stroll.
Yeah.
And Exhibition, which is the first time ever where it's been this way.
And
we got to be there.
And we're going to be tailgating under the solar panels.
Oh.
Big deal.
Nice.
The new
All
solar
right,
panels.
I'm going to give me some tickets. I got to get up in here.
Georgia hot.
I've been to-
any kind of sausage,
Listen,
chicken.
I live on
burgers,
Bellevue. I can just walk across the street.
Right.
You don't have to
Get
worry
over
about
there.
parking, right?
That's right. You
So
don't have to
how
worry about
important is
parking.
this weekend, Jackie? Because you put a lot of effort into because I know you put a lot of effort into coordinating this and pulling all these pieces together to sort of make this something that people can hang their hat on and want to see flourish?
We need to have, this has to happen every year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that this is the beginning of something huge. I want my fellow alum to feel like they have a home to go back to, and that there's a reason. You know, we talked about, I was talking to Michael Jefferson about this and Larry Conaway a couple of weeks ago. We talked
both
about
my neighbors.
both your neighbors. Robin Miller Godwin lives up on the
Yep,
street too.
she's my
alum.
sorority sister.
There's a lot of folks around, but we were talking and we had this conversation about how our initial point of coming back was to really try to take care of students, but we found ourselves taking better care of each other. Because as we have conversations with other alum who graduated 20, 30 years before we did, we're learning history that we had no idea about, and the significance of these three that we didn't even know that what they were doing before we came. We thought we were the be-all, end-all. I know. We really did. I mean, I think we were the first coddle class.
You're the first coddle
class. The CCs. The colored CCs. The CCC. But we are learning so much. And we're learning so much about what other alum are doing out here across the country that we had no idea about.
Mm-hmm.
And we're saying, oh my God, they came to, we're like, hey, you guys, we came to Southern. But now we're looking at them and saying, they went to Southern.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if we had known about them, if we had a question about X, Y, or Z, there could have been someone we could have called and it would have been immediate, not us having to struggle to find it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's one of the things that happens, I think, at, you know, if you go to Yale, there are networks that are built in.
Oh,
if
Lord.
you have a question or you're writing a book about whatever, so-and-so's father did that.
Yeah.
So you can talk to my dad.
Or you can go to Afro-Am Center.
Or go to the Afro-Am
which is the center of everything black at that school, right?
Right. And
you
those
know?
alum reach back, they come back.
Oh, because I've hosted
lecture.
the Blacks at Yale. I was their MC for the BSA awards thing. And I swear to God, I was like, did anybody tell Yale this was an HBCU? Because there was so many black people. I mean, they filled the hotel space with just black people of alumni. I was like, I forgot. You know, you forget how many black folks came through Yale. So I suspect it's the same for Southern. You just forget.
You don't. I don't think they forget. I think people don't know.
They don't know. They don't
more
know.
Of not having any knowledge of it.
Yeah.
And I believe that what we're doing now is going to be the beginning. Is again, I'm going to say it, and I can't say, I hate saying this word because there's this man who says it all the time, but this is going to be huge. Huge.
No, we're not using the level of the. We're not using
right.
We're gonna talk right.
He hasn't left too many for us, but you know, this really it's gonna become bigger than what I think any of us have imagined, and I certainly have no time whatsoever to do this work, but I have found every minute to be able to put energy into making this happen.
Well, tell people the website.
But so the website is Black Alumni SCSU. We've got a strong committee of 8 core people who are working just as hard as I am to make sure that we have an incredible weekend next weekend. And it's .com. BlackAlumniSCSU.com.
Okay.
Please go there. You can register. Students can register for workshops there. Alum can register and get their all access pass. That's good for the whole weekend. We're feeding people all weekend long.
Ooh.
Right? And open
HBC, I'm telling you. Southern is looking like an HBCU every minute.
Exactly. And then we have a Motown brunch. Oh. We're going to be over at Woodbridge Social on Sunday morning. We're doing they're playing music. We're going to have a Motown brunch on Sunday. And that will wrap our weekend up. And again, this is the beginning of this web.
This is wonderful.
Recognizable web.
I love it. Thank you all for coming this morning.
Thank you.
I so appreciate your presence.
Thank you.
And what you have
Thanks
done
for
for Southern Connecticut State University. I'm not a graduate of that school, but a lot of my friends are.
And you're I mean, listen, it's alum and friends.
Listen,
there are people
you
who
can't
are
keep me out.
Listen, alum and friends. So
you can't keep me out. I'm crashing. It's like, I'll take a class. I could be an alum. You know,
you don't have to crash. You're already in the family.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you all for coming. I'm looking forward to your weekend. I'm looking forward to see what y'all do and grow this thing. Thank you, Ms. Mathews, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Barber.
Thank you.
Thank you. Harry, I'm going to play us out, and I'll see y'all on the other side tomorrow.
Wow.